Do Did Will, the Story of People podcast for another week with my special guest, Rauth. How are you, sir? What's going on? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me. We finally made it.
We
We
finally
finally
met.
made it.
We finally met. We are on the same network right now called the Crier Media Network. And every now and again, I like to have some people on the show from the network showcase what they're doing, but it falls into the Story of People podcast. And you have got a great story. You've got a great podcast called Who's Got Next. You're the senior editor at Job Skills Compass magazine. So lots to talk about, lots to get into today. Heavy on sports, heavy on motivational speaking. There's tons of stuff that we can get into, but pleasure to finally meet you. It's been a long time. I've seen you floating around, even writing a shit ton of articles for the network. Man, well, how are you, man? What's going on?
I'm just living the dream, man. Big fan of what you do. I really love this new series you're doing. I watched the one you
Thanks,
did
buddy.
with Marianne. I thought, yes, Marianne, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I really like it, and I love this concept. I'm a big, I have a bit of an indigenous background, and it's very big on storytelling and people using their stories, and but I've always been that guy that loves to sit there and talk to the old folks and just hear like the stories from the past. And
Yeah.
I was saying to my wife not long ago that I'm getting to that age now where like the people who I used to get the stories from, they're passing away and they're moving on. And the people who are telling the stories, like I already know the stories. Like there's nothing like soon I'm going to be the storyteller. Like I'm starting to kind of hit those milestones. So, but no, I love it. I love the whole concept of this. I wish I would have thought of it first and would have stole it from you, to be honest.
I've had it in my brain for a long time. Just the premise of because the old show was very very much talking to people about their journey, and ultimately, I think most podcasts are. If we really break it down, most podcasts, if they're not topical, if they're not getting into politics, or they're not getting into pop culture like I do with Chris Machete on Live from Machete Comics, it's more everyone kind of has these sort of journey stories. So, I mean, I'm not changing the wheel here, but I definitely get a chance to talk to some interesting people. So I appreciate, you being interesting and willing to do the show. So thanks for that.
I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. I will throw out to your audience too if they don't do it. You're a good TikTok follow as well. Lost a little bit of respect for you when you did the stupid dog trend, but besides that, I was good with it.
That's a new dog, though. It's a new
Yeah.
dog. Okay.
Okay.
And so, like anything, it's a new dog. And I'm like, I gotta, plus it's a mini golden doodle. The dude's ultra cute. It's like, let's just put it out there a little bit. But you'll also see I don't have 45 dog videos out there. I've got a handful. There was a handful that made it to the Insta. But other than that, yeah, I kind of kept it
A
a little
lot, a
bit
lot
there.
of coffee videos. That's what I like.
Well,
And it's
that's what started this whole thing, the coffee journey to find the best coffee in the world. While I was traveling around, and that's when that's when Dean and myself and Dave Randall, all the guys that were kind of involved in the early phases of the Blundell Network, um, like you got to start talking about trying to find all the best coffee in the world. And I'm like, no one wants to listen to 200 episodes on coffee. It's just not going to happen. So I got about 12 in, and then I had to kind of change it up a little bit. But the journey for the best coffee in the world I still do that, and I still post all that stuff. So
yeah, it's
yeah.
amazing. As a coffee connoisseur, I'm all over it. All over it.
Well, that's the best, buddy. I mean, and you know what's funny on the old show, which technically is the same RSS feed, but the most downloaded episode I've had of all time was Tim Wendelbo from Oslo, Norway, which is one of the best roasters in the world. And for whatever reason, man, the wave came and literally put the Brent on Tour show on the map. It literally, like, Matt Kundle calls me, goes, something's going on. So I was like, what's going on? He goes, I don't know, something's going on, but man, it's rocketing. And the next thing you know, it was like number one in Norway, and that's where they're from. And it was just a whole funny kind of bit. So coffee brings everyone together.
What a
So,
flex. I
right?
love how you just threw that in there and just like it was gonna pass by me. Number one in Norway. Look at you.
No, that was for a week. Now it's like 8,000, but it made it there because, Tim has some presence there. And if you ever travel to Norway, you got to go to his place. It's amazing. And you being a coffee connoisseur, you'll understand my love for the AeroPress and things like that. So it's all
Yes, sir.
good. Okay, sir. So we are talking the Story of People podcast. So let's get to it. Ray, what do you do?
I do a whole lot, man. For I have the podcast, obviously. Who's Got Next? I'm also the marketing director of an organization called Job Skills. We're a not-for-profit organization, and in that time and over the last few months, I've launched a media division of Job Skills, where we've launched a magazine, where I'm the senior content editor, and we've just launched Compass, the digital version called Compass Coordinates, where we're putting out daily news, all surrounded around community. It's all about building community. That's our first episode, our first edition went out in December. Really excited that our next one's coming out on March 1st. Actually, a Crier patron of ours, Ryan Lindley, will be on the cover. So yeah, so I'm creating content on a bunch of different platforms. I also work for actually my biggest following. It's funny. It's the one that the Crier never talks about. I work for an app called Newsbreak. I have about 45,000 followers over there. That's sort of where I really cut my chops. But yeah, so I'm just a content creator, marketing director by day. And I know we're gonna get into the will, or did, but stupidly fell into what I'm doing now. But yeah, just doing a lot. Got Who's Got Next, which is like a comedy sports show. It's just four guys that hang around. The concept is basically that we all show up and we all bring a subject with us, but we don't tell the other guys what we're talking about before we get there, and we kind of just surprise each other. It's been a great concept. I got a spin-off now called Ray's Got Next, where I interview myself. It's amazing. I use AI technology for the questions. Awesome. Because dude, I put this out on Twitter a couple weeks ago, and I've been trying to figure it out ever since. I said I didn't want to host a podcast anymore. I wanted to just be a podcast guest. I just wanted to go on somebody else's podcast every night and then put it on my channels. Sure. And then I have figured out how to, you don't have to do the prep. Like, I mean, you brought me on and you're asking me all these questions beforehand and asking me for this. Like, I see all the prep you're putting into it. And I get that. That's what we do as content creators and podcast hosts. It sucks. So now I have figured out a way using AI technology to interview myself that I don't know the questions ahead of time, but I generate them before and I pop them out, and recorded my first episode today. It's going to be out on Monday. I'm really excited. It's called Ray's Got Next.
How does the AI tech work on the Ray's Got Next? Like, how does that work? We talked about it yesterday on a company call about bringing AI into the equation to assist on a few things. But how does that how does that work for you? Is it like a chat GPT just saying, give me 10 questions about Ray based on what you think you know, or how does it work?
So I use Jasper. Shout out to Jasper. It's more of a content writing piece. It's for people in advertising and marketing, use it more in content creators on that side than the chat GPT and OpenAI. That's more of the experimental one and Bill Gates one. But we use Jasper. No, so I knew the subject matter I wanted to talk about. So I wrote, give me podcast questions surrounding this subject, and Amazing. It generated 5 really good questions. So I didn't read them. I just copied and pasted them right into my banners, and I was just popping up my banners and reading them out for the first time on my podcast and then answering them. However, I do use some other AI technology at work that actually does voiceovers, and I might borrow some of the time and actually have the AI ask me the question out loud for my second episode. I got to figure that out. Episode 1 was can I generate questions? And then episode 2, my only concern with having to do the AI voiceover is I might actually read the question. I really like that I wasn't thinking about the answers ahead of time. I knew the subject matter, but the questions, like, there was a question that I literally, there was a question, idea. Dude, I literally said, oh, great question. And I had to think about it, and I was interviewing myself. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. So I'm really excited about it, and it kind of ties into where my content is going. So it's really cool.
So, but I feel like, so it's strictly going to be you, or is it something where you could actually bring me on, bring Dean on, or bring James on, or bring somebody, Lachlan, on, but also you don't know the questions that the AI is going to ask, and you could be like, all right, let's talk 10 questions about, oh my God, 10 questions about, Canadian classic rock that you could hit Lachlan with or yourself with, and neither one of you know the questions, but I think that's a great concept, man.
Yeah, and I think I could stretch it out a little further. I'm probably going to start the first few by myself, just as I figure out how it can work and how I can, best implement the AI. And I'm telling you right now, I know this is going off topic, but everybody out there who's scared of AI, as a content creator and somebody who's in marketing for a living, AI is the greatest invention in the world for us. It will replace jobs. So it
Totally.
will, I'm sorry, it will. I'm just going to be completely honest.
Yeah.
So I'm telling any young marketer or advertising person out there or someone who's breaking into the field, embrace it and learn how to use it and learn how to be the master at it so that you can walk in and say you're the AI specialist, because our AI does so much for us from a content perspective for our website and the stuff we do. And when you read the new magazine, I'm not going to tell you which articles, but 3 articles were written by AI, and I don't think, and
Incredible.
we gave it a name, and you can't tell the difference between my writing and the AI writing. It's phenomenal.
What's the premise behind this Job Skills Compass magazine?
So there's a funny story behind it. If I could actually tell you the whole story.
Absolutely. We got all the time in the
so
world.
So I always wanted to launch a media division of Job Skills when I moved into the role. I've only been in the role for about a year now. I've been working for the organization for 8 years, but I wanted to launch a media side because I've been involved with Crier. I've been involved in, in my past with Sportscaster and that kind of thing. And I wanted to launch this media division. But so we were going to just do podcasts and YouTube and, maybe write some blogs and just, the things that I've done in the past, all the digital side of things. We had a newsletter that went out monthly, and we would mail it out through MailChimp, and we'd put a lot of work into this newsletter. It already existed when I got there, and I asked my staff about 3 months into taking the position, I said, can you give me the stats for MailChimp, because it'll tell you how many people opened it and this and that. And we were sending it out to 1,600 people, and it was getting opened 8 times. And I said, there was a lot of effort going into this newsletter by my team that nobody was reading. I said, this really seems like a lot of wasted effort. So we started, spitballing one day about the different things we could do to change it, to get people to open our newsletter. An idea that I had, so our newsletter was called Compass, and an idea that I had was, let's call it Compass Magazine, and then people may want to open it because it's a magazine. So I went to a senior management meeting every week. Every Monday we have a senior management meeting, and each division kind of just updates all the directors and our CEO. We update what we're doing in our divisions. And I said, we're changing the name of the newsletter. We're changing it to Compass Magazine. And I explained why. And I walked out of that meeting an hour later, and we were producing our own magazine. We were getting rid of the newsletter altogether, and we were doing a magazine. And with that magazine, so being a digital guy, I said this was probably like the beginning of October. So my boss says, when do you think we could have the first edition out? And I said, beginning of December, because I didn't take print into consideration, right?
Yeah.
Because with digital, you have a date and you finish it by that date, right?
Yeah.
So she says, great. So she tells the board, right, it's going to be out by December 1st. So I go tell my team, and I go to the marketing, my marketing manager, and I'm like, hey, great news, we're going to do this magazine. And the team was actually really excited. They're like, this is a really cool idea. And I said, yeah, so we're going to have it out for December 1st. And she looked at me and said, Ray, we got to get it to the printer by this day. You've given us 33 days. So that first edition, we completely from scratch put together in 33 days. So it's really just it's an amazing story. It went from trying to change the name of the newsletter to turning into a magazine to flipping over a magazine in 30 days. And, we made a lot of mistakes. It was our first one. We're really excited about our second edition because it looks almost like a completely different magazine. It looks like we're really, really proud of the product that's going to be out on March 1st.
How many, is it like a big kind of magazine? It's available to everywhere, like it's going to Chapters or Indigo or any of these, or it's just sort of
it's like a free magazine. So it's York Region and Peel. You can find it at any of the libraries in York Region, any of the libraries in Peel, all of our offices. We have 9 locations across those regions. You can find them there. We have them at different businesses. The first one was really successful. One of our outreach people, who's a distributor of the magazine, he gets calls weekly that they've run out and they need more. We gave away, so we put out 24,000 printed copies, and every single one is gone.
They're gone.
And then we had an additional 16,000 or 1,600 downloads of the digital version of it. So there is a digital version. You can go to jobskills.org/compass coordinates, and there's a right when you get to the top of the page, there's a it says download the newest edition, and we'll have the newest edition up there. So yeah, it's really cool. So it's been an expensive branding exercise, which is really what this is from a marketing term. It's been a very expensive marketing exercise. However, because of the success we've had, there's a second one with Ryan Lindley on it. Really, really excited. But with the success we had, and if we can continue the success with the second one, and I can't say who because we want to keep it a surprise, but for our June edition and September edition, Our June edition, we have. I'll just say he'll be there in his uniform. He'll be on the front cover,
Nice.
in his jersey. And on for our September edition, we actually have a Juno winning country music star who's going to be on the cover, who's going to be doing a spread for us and doing a video podcast. So we finally started like booking a couple of notable people to be on. Not that Ryan's not notable. I love Ryan, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
What's the premise? So, Job Skills
Yeah,
Compass magazine itself, though, inside it's sort of like a career advice, or is it
it's
just like more of a?
everything.
It's
So
everything, right?
when we decided to do it, I decided that I didn't want it just to be an employment heavy, all about job skills, right? I said no
Yeah,
one's going
yeah,
to read it. So we have everything in there. So we do have there, like I mean, there's like 4 or 5, incredible pieces that were written by some of our staff about different ways you can find jobs and all the beating ATS, all that kind of thing. I did a pretty big piece on cleansing your social media footprint and some of the do's and don'ts and how it can hurt you. And being somebody,
nice.
because of what I do, who has a huge digital footprint, there are things out there that I know people can find which aren't the greatest light, especially if you're looking for a job. But then we have an interior designer on staff, and she put in for the second article or magazine in Rona, she did a really good interior designer one. Being a spring magazine, I did a baseball article just about
Nice.
how it's baseball time. We've got a garden thing. Ryan guy was a really good barbecue recipe. We have 2 other
Yeah.
spring recipes. It's really just community. We wanted it to have something for everybody. There's a couple of surprise pieces in there we'll keep. We are also really big on equity, diversity, and inclusion at Job Skills. We have a whole committee that works on it. I'm a part of the working groups. And we have 2 what we call it EDI. We have 2 EDI stories in there from people who share their experience of immigrating to Canada and living with living as a non-Caucasian in Canada, and some of the
Yeah.
things and some really impactful stories. That first magazine you put up, which was the green one, which is our first edition, there's an article in there called "Call Me Mina." That was one of our senior managers. He's the director of newcomer services. I've known him for 7 years as Jeff. And in September of this year, he reclaimed his African name of Mina and
Ah.
wrote so we gave him he was the centerfold story, and it's just an amazing story of his journey of why he went and reclaimed his name and the history behind it. So we try to really put like impactful pieces in there. We don't want any fluff. We want people to really get something out of the magazine, and we try to put something for everybody.
Is it still uh, worth it to do print?
So I didn't think so until we did it and we saw how popular it was.
Interesting. People like
Um,
to hold things. I mean, I like to hold a book still. I don't. I don't do any of the online digital book reading things. I actually want to physically hold a book, and I'll still buy the occasional magazine to leaf through it. But it is going by. It is kind of going away.
it's
So it's interesting.
but I have a 16-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
and books and thrift stores and having things in your hands is back amongst the
Oh
young
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And I was talking to another friend of mine, another marketer. We were just having a conversation going back and forth about youth advertising and how we're advertising to youth. And what we've realized is the Gen Zs, because I'm a millennial. If you go by age, I'm on the like I just hit I was between that Gen X and millennial age, but I'd be in the
Okay.
millennial piece.
That's like a
Um,
42-year-old. Was that a 41
no,
year old?
I'm in my mid 30s, so I
Okay.
just hit
So
that
you're
like
right on the cusp there. Yeah.
right
Yeah.
on that
Okay.
cusp
All
of
right.
it. Um, and we were chatting, and he says, like he said, millennials, we really fought against Gen X. Gen X was really, the old school, blah blah blah. He's like, we were the ones like embrace technology. Ah, you're old, you don't
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
it, and social media, like that was our generation. He goes, it was all invented by Gen Xers, but we embraced it. He said now the Z's, he said, are rebelling against us because like I'm a millennial and I got a 17-year-old.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like they're rebelling against us. They're like, oh, you guys are all about your phones and technology. I
Yeah.
want a
Yeah.
book. I want this. I want that. And they're like going records and vinyl are
Hmm.
huge in amongst that age group. Right. So they're
But
almost going
think about what
backwards.
we. I mean, I'm 47 in a couple of days. I'm like, came through the what I deemed, I'm not the boomer on the porch, but I'm like, we definitely got the best time in movies. We got the
You
best
did.
time in all that stuff. But I just watched the new Jim Jeffries thing on Netflix, and he was going on about how everyone's coming after Gen X and the millennials are coming after Gen X, but it's actually, and like Greta is coming after Gen X, but it's actually before us. And it's something as simple as the generation before us had the biggest boom in technology. I mean, as far as between 1950 and the 2000s, it was like the world exploded, but they didn't put hinges to keep lids on their garbage cans in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I'm like, exactly. And he goes, Buzz, the team that went to the moon, it's like they went to the moon, but they still had to carry their luggage because they didn't have wheels on it yet.
Yeah.
So that generation screwed it for everybody, actually, and it was us that fixed it. And then now everyone's rebelling against. It was just funny. So that's a funny one, dude. So, all right, who's got next? Compass. There's a whole journey that's in there. So, how did you do it, man?
Yeah. So I was a social worker. That was my gig for about 15 years. I worked in the prisons at first as a correctional officer, and then I was at a halfway house. And at the halfway house, I really realized like I didn't want to be a guard. I really wanted to help people, and I ended up leaving. And I started working at a homeless shelter. And anyways, went to school, got what I needed. Again, I was a social worker for 15 years, and then in 2017, I should put out there, I've always wanted to be famous. Like,
Okay.
I'm fully admit that. Like, I always wanted to be famous, like since I was a little kid.
Where did that come? Let's get into the minutia. Where did that come from?
I think I wanted to be a rock star. That was my
right.
big thing, right?
There
Like
you go.
I'm a guitar player. I have my guitars. I always imagined just, winning a Grammy and playing in front of people, living the rock and roll lifestyle. I'm still that guy that drives in my car, and when Meatloaf comes on, I do anything for love, right? I'm driving down, the gods of sex and drugs and rock. I'm screaming that out my window. I'm that guy. I wanted to be a rock star, so I always wanted to be famous. So in 2017, I actually just started a YouTube channel. It was called Rauth.
Yeah.
Which is funny, full circle. That's what my YouTube channel is called now, but it was called Rauth, and it was a variety channel. So I did like a vlog. I did some motivational stuff, and then I created this comedy character. It was this guy named Donnie O'Donnell, and I'm a New England Patriots fan.
Okay.
And Donnie O'Donnell was this arrogant. So what I did is, so as a Patriots fan, you get the list, right? People, you're arrogant, you're self-absorbed, you guys are cheaters, you guys are this, you guys are that. So one day I made a whole list, and I created this character, Donnie. He was from Boston, and I was that guy. You know what I mean?
Hilarious.
Like, just, Spygate and deflate. Stop talking about Tom Brady's balls, and this character just developed. So anyway, so I was doing this variety channel, and nobody cared about anything I was doing but this Donnie O'Donnell character. This is kind of like all of a sudden, my subscribership's going up, my likes are going up, but the only, my Donnie O'Donnell videos are coming out once a week, have 700, 800, 900 views, and everything else has like 3. Right. So I realized, okay, this is what it is. So I dropped the variety thing, and Donnie's gig was what Donnie did was he did these open letters to Patriots fans. So he'd be like, "Dear Pats Nation, it's your boy, Donnie O'Donnell. You're welcome." You know what I mean? And I would do this just ridiculous, like, Tom Brady's got the bluest eyes in the NFL, and that's why nobody wants to mess with him. Like, it was ridiculous. But it caught on. And then I guess in between the nonsense, people could hear that I actually understood what I was talking about, and I actually knew football. So then my comments started changing, and it started saying like, "Hey, dude, like, why don't you drop this, the bad Boston accent and just like start actually talking about football?" So one day, as I do on a whim, no setup, no nothing, I just changed. Didn't explain to anybody that why my name is Ray or what Donnie was, or I just started talking football. Anyways, I kind of, I kind of blew up. It was really cool. I kind of blew up, and, got a few thousand subscribers. I signed on to a company called Sportscaster. I was their lead NFL anchor on there. And then I went, worked for a company called Halftime, and then Colorcast. And when we were on Sportscaster, they hooked me up with my boy Connor, who's one of my co-hosts on Who's Got Next. And we did a show Monday to Friday. And my channel at this point was now called Dear Pats Nation. right?
Remember that? Yeah. Yeah.
And he had a really popular podcast called Connor Commentary, and we're both kind of comedians. We both like sports. He's from Massachusetts. He's got like the Mass accent, like it's ridiculous,
Right down.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like the Canadian Boston fan. And they put us together and they combined our shows and we became DPN Commentary. We were averaging about so sportscasters all live streaming, so we would live stream and whatever. We were averaging about 15 to 20,000 live streams a night, Monday through Friday.
Amazing.
We were banging. Anyway, sportscaster went broke and they couldn't afford us anymore. We signed, and I love telling the story out loud. We signed a huge deal with them in October of 2020. A huge massive deal. We became a featured podcast. We signed a massive deal.
Define huge deal without getting too personal, but what does that mean in the world of podcasting slash online video content? What does huge deal mean?
Guaranteed monthly money in the thousands. So
All right.
no revenue share, no nothing.
Wow.
More money than we were earning on any of our other sort of revenue streams. No, you know what I mean? And then we got to cut a sponsorship, and we knew we had sponsorship coming in. I'll talk the numbers. I'm okay with it. We were both looking at at that point, about $3,000 a month each American. So
Amazing.
for me, being in Canada, I mean, that money's fantastic, right?
Yeah.
That's almost matching what I'm making here, in my regular job. So it was a massive contract. They invested a lot of money into us. They brought in a voiceover artist and got us our own slug. So we think oh, wow, we're blowing up. This is October of 2020. 3 days before Christmas, we got our notice that they were letting us go.
Because they were going bankrupt. They were going under. Is that the
idea? So they were a bank.
Who else was on there? Who else was on there with you?
So I'm like Adam Armbright. This guy Adam Armbright was there. He kind of he should be very famous somewhere. He's a really great guy. Another guy named Lawrence Owen was there. Actually, Dean Blundell was on Sportscaster for a little bit before I knew Dean Blundell.
I remember that.
Yeah, we were just on there for a bit. Another guy named Keith McPherson. He's now a radio host in New York. So all of us have moved on to new networks. Like Adam's with the Locked On Network, covering the Nets. Lawrence is with the Believe Network, I believe, covering the Indianapolis Colts. So all of us who were a part of that group, and then Connor and I, we went out on our own, signed with Newsbreak. We were supposed to join the Dean Blundell network, and then he unfortunately he got a new job and couldn't keep up with the commitments and had to leave the show, and I went on solo. But yeah, so we all got these kind of big, massive deals, and then we all got fired. We get 3 months notice, and
what is this, terrestrial radio, Ray? What is this?
Yes, yeah. So Connor and I decided to stay together after we got let go from Sportscaster, and we started our own YouTube. Well, we went back to my YouTube page, which was dead because we were on my deal was exclusive. I wasn't allowed to stream anywhere else. We went back to my YouTube page. We changed our name to Dear Pats Nation. We got up to like 18,000 subscribers or something like that pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And so we had a Patreon, and we would do like an exclusive Patreon once a week, and we do a hangout. We had like 70 people signed up to that. You know what I mean? Like, so we were doing really, really well. And then again, we hit Newsbreak, which, we blew up on Newsbreak. Like I said, we got to 40,000 really quickly. And so, we kind of did that, and it all started as a joke. It all started with me just having a variety channel and this character that I picked up, and then I signed on with the Blundell Network in 2021, in November 2021, and and then obviously we became Crier Media.
Yeah,
I was the sports director for a few months, but I have a full-time job that's very, and I'm running a media company of my own on the other side, on top of, being the director of marketing. I was burning the candles from both ends. So I had to let it go. So that's what I'm doing. So now I have the Who's Got Next, Ray's Got Next, and it all, came to be, and the reason, but the whole thing is what I do now is with, Compass Magazine, and I'm just being a senior manager that's in charge of the marketing team. I never went to school for marketing. This is all because of what I've done in the digital world.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah, the position became available. I'd been with the company a long time, and they approached me and said, hey, our digital presence has always been very small, and you have a lot of really good ideas. We know you're really creative. We've seen what you did online, which scared the hell out of me, because if anybody watches my content, it used to be very rough. They're like, no, but we want you to bring that to us. And and so I ended up now as a senior manager where I make pretty decent money, and I get to do what I was scraping with. As in the digital content world, you're always
Yeah,
scraping.
always.
I'm now making a guaranteed salary doing what I love with the backing of an organization who's investing in my ideas. So yeah, really just the really, my life story, when we really get into it, has so many hills and twists and turns. And if you would have asked me 6 months ago, do you see yourself where you are now? I would have said no. My life goes really fast, really, really fast. But as you'll hear on my podcast, The Money Ray's Got Next, is I'm a very driven person.
I can't
And
wait to hear this show. I mean, I love this concept that you've done here with the AI, because it's actually something I want to try to incorporate a little bit into this, because I do have another another part of this show that I do on Sundays that is like a bedtime story. That's called
yes,
Sunday Night Storytime, and I had Ryan come on and do a good thing about Anthony Bourdain, and we did one about the foods, and I've got a couple more people coming on. Uh, Same premise as it was you were talking about with who's got next. As far as I don't want to know the subject matter, so whoever's coming on to tell that story are coming on with a story that I might not know anything about. So it kind of, but it also opens itself up to AI, and having like a Sunday Night Storytime AI based on something that they generate. And I think that you're going to see a lot of podcasts go down that road where it's going to be hard to decipher between human AI and that side of it, which takes a bit of the fun out of it, but also adds some fun too. So
but there's still a
you know,
human element, though, right? And this is why
yeah,
I tell people don't be scared of AI, because you still need the creative juices
yeah,
to. I, AI is not creative on its own. AI becomes creative based on what you tell AI to do.
exactly.
I was messing around with OpenAI or ChatGPT, and I interviewed it as if I was interviewing it for a magazine article, and I just and I was doing follow up questions, and I had a blast. I almost published it on Blondell because it looked like this, and I was going to say that I was going to make up a name and just like say, look at this interview I did, and I was doing it about the history of World War II, and I was asking
Mm.
very pointed follow up questions, thinking, okay, they're never going to have an answer, and they were having these answers. And when I had to do a lot of research after, and it was true, there's still a creative side to it, and that's why I say to people,
Yeah.
don't be scared of it. And especially if you're in what we do, whether it's content creators or if you're in the marketing world, I happen to be in both. Like, embrace it and become the expert that tells that AI like how to be creative.
Hmm. I have got one of the things about this show is obviously the story of people. I love the story of people. I love their journeys. I'm already hooked on your journey, Ray. We can talk for 3 hours, but there's so many ways that someone's journey takes them. We've all missed rents. We've all slept on friends' couches to get to our version of a dream job, or et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that I noticed lately too is that you've been putting out a lot more motivational videos, um, and you had mentioned potentially taking some things to that area. I'm going to show a quick video, a quick clip from your Twitter before you burned everything down and there's nothing left. So this is the only one I could pull off. We're going to get into this and then we'll dive into it. But this sounds like a new Ray. Stand by.
Battling stress in the workplace? Don't worry, you're not alone. It's important to take time and manage your stress levels at work and make sure that they don't spiral out of control. Whether it's finding a moment of peace with a cup of coffee or taking an early lunch break for some fresh air, make sure you step away from work when you need it. A bit of self care and relaxation can help you stay productive and clear your head. Brilliant.
How about that? Was that something? You know?
Brilliant.
And I just think it's funny because the world is loaded with like these sort of like motivational things that come out, and people are like, oh, what's that, or what, but everyone grabs them from time to time and makes them their own, or they turn them into their own thing. And I'm a big proponent of motivating people to achieve their goals and achieve their ultimate end game, because there's a lot of miserable people in the world. There's a lot of people that just have, for whatever reason, they've decided to not go for it, or they've decided to just kind of, because of their circumstance, they're a little bit like, they're a little bit kind of stuck. I saw this yesterday. I think you get a kick out of this, and I put it up on my Insta. but that's inspire others, and the universe will take note. And that's sort of just around the corner from me. And I noticed it, and I'm like, it's a good piece. So I grabbed it, threw it on Insta, and it did pretty well. So tell me about Motivational Ray, and I guess it leads to my question of what will you do next?
Motivational Ray is more the real Ray than the sports Ray that everybody knows. People in my personal life, including a couple of guys on the network that we work for, know that I actually hate being the sports guy. I've been trying to change my image from being the sports guy for a long time. I do sports and I've made my career in this content world with sports because that's what hit on my YouTube channel, as I was explaining before. And
Mm-hmm.
with my drive at the time, I'm no longer like this, but at my drive at the time to be famous, I thought, oh, maybe I can be famous doing sports, which big mistake, by the way. People, it just doesn't, pick something else. But
Mm-hmm.
the whole like motivational thing, that's who I really am as a person. I mean, I dedicated 15 years of my career to social work. I have a mother who, well, a lot of people, everybody does, but my mother is bipolar manic depressive, and she's was forced into retirement in her 30s from a really good job. And I watched her, especially in the early 2000s, deal with the stigma of mental health, and then spend months at a time in a psych ward, because that was still very the early days of medication, and that's when they would take cocktails. And I wanted to dedicate myself to helping people, and addiction runs through my family, and I dealt with addiction when I was younger, and have been clean for many years, like 18 years, 17 years now.
Good for you.
Thank you. Clean. And so I think that, that's always been who I am. I've always wanted to motivate people in my own fun way, though. I still have my personality. I wear my sunglasses. I still have my own personality. I don't want to be Tony Robbins. And I think for me, I think one of the things that people have as I toot my own horn here, because I'm very crass. But as I think one of the things that attracts me to people is I'm very authentic. Like, you and I just had a conversation off air, and it's the same conversation we're having on air, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
my on-air personality is me times 10. I put a little bit of entertainment value to it, but that's who I am. That whole motivational piece, that whole wanting to move people through, dedicating to bettering yourself. And again, you'll see on Monday, and I do hope you watch, hope everybody watches.
Can't
Like,
wait to watch it, man.
you
Can't
know,
wait to
I,
watch it.
I talked about this one question. It was all the whole episode is about motivation, and I asked the AI asked me one question, and I kind of turned around and said, like, listen, I'm very insecure. I know I come across as this very secure person, but I have the same insecurities as everybody else. Um, so this is who I am. Like, and so Crier has brought on a whole bunch of sports guys, because there was a time, right, that I was the sports guy
Absolutely.
on the network. There was
Yep.
nobody else, so I kind of had to carry it. But now they've brought on all these sports guys who are contributing great pieces on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
And the higher ups of the network have always kind of given me a little bit of carte blanche with my what I do, and will let me twist and turn. I came on as the football guy, then I became the all sports guy, then I became the soccer guy for a while, and but I've always
Yeah.
been sports. But I really am starting to push my content over more to the motivational piece, the employment piece. One of our colleagues, Army Chris, he loves it. I get messages from him all the time about my employment stuff. I want to get into, PTSD with soldiers. I used to work with soldiers,
Amazing.
returning and working them to get into work. So I want to get more into that kind of subject matter. And then Who's Got Next on Wednesday will be my 1 hour a week to just be a big dumb sports fan and have our conversation. Yeah. And just, because I still want to have fun. But um I I always said I'd stop doing content when it stopped being fun. You know what I mean? Like, because this has to be fun, and I don't make enough money to fight it, to keep grinding. And then you do it. I think I'm on year 6 now or whatever. You grind and grind and grind, and you get
Yeah.
to a point, and at some point you realize, like, this is where I am, and I can accept it. You know what I mean? Like, it's I've kind of hit my plateau of, like, okay,
But
this is who.
are you still interested in being famous, or would you rather
No.
would you rather have your your pages or your message actually, you know, inspire people when people message you afterwards going, I found your page, it saved my life, etc., etc. Is that a better place to be than just having
100%.
a bigger YouTube page about that?
Um, my whole famous thing changed during COVID, and I'll tell you what really kind of changed my attitude. I just never really found the opportunity to make the switch, and now I have. Because I still like money. Like, I'm not going to lie to people. You know what I mean? So it's to take a massive risk and change your subject matter. I just happen to be in a position in my life now that I can take this risk and know I'm giving up money on the back end to hopefully kind of supplement on the front end. But
Sure.
during COVID, especially the very, very early, I mean, they put us together on Sportscaster for DPN commentary at the end of April in 2020. So you're talking, I believe that, or no, sorry. Yeah, beginning of April. I was on Sportscaster. I broke on Sportscaster, the NBA shutting down.
Oh
And
yeah.
the game being canceled, right? And when Rudy Gobert got tested positive, and then we got to carry this sports show in April when there's no sports on, right? Like, it was stupid. I was doing play by play they had me doing play by play for Madden simulations, which I stopped showing up. It's the first time in my life I've ever like nagged on something I was getting paid for.
Listen, I
But
had to change the old show from Brenton on tour to Brenton not on tour. And then
yeah, well,
I
yeah.
had to change the format and bring everyone in that I could to talk about everything. It's almost an early rendition of this show, but
Yeah, but what really hit me was, so I mean, so we were doing sports, but we were doing everything. Like, we were doing segment Karen of the day. You know what I mean? Like, we were finding videos. Like,
yeah,
we were
yeah,
we
yeah.
were we were struggling for content. We had to do an hour every night. But then I got an email from somebody, and it was a doctor, and he sent it to me when I shared it with Connor, and we both were like, wow. And then we got more, and we got more, and we were getting messages from first responders, from nurses, doctors, policemen, firemen, firefighters, and thanking us, because the one thing we never did is we refused to talk politics, and we refused to talk about world
COVID
events
and all that
and
stuff. Yeah,
COVID. Like, it was like, we're gonna talk about idiots. And I think talking about Karens is not political. You just, they look like morons, right?
yeah,
um and we became the escape. And I remember him and I having a meeting, and just to talk about what we're going to be doing the next week, and we're reading these emails, and we just got tons of them. And I kind of looked at him and said, do you understand the responsibility that we now hold? And he's like, I'm like, someone's coming off a 16-hour shift at a hospital, and they're
yeah,
depending on our replay of our live show to, entertain them for an hour and distract them from this really crappy life. And I apologize, I swore there, I apologize, but this really crappy life that they're going through at this moment, because we're here complaining that we're stuck in our basements. They're facing this thing head on and watching people die. And
yeah,
we took that responsibility so serious, knowing who was watching our show and the comments and the thank yous. When you're doing a sports show where you're talking about Karen of the day and you're talking about all this other stuff, and people are thanking you, you know what I mean? Like, just thanks for the laugh. Thank you for the distraction. We knew that people's mental health, I mean, I saw it with my own clients that I was working with, people's mental health was at all-time lows, especially when lockdown first came. And we became a distraction. The messages that we got from people who either were dealing with mental health issues, dealing with loneliness, or were first responders
yeah,
who were watching our show and just being entertained by it and laughing with us, and knowing that we weren't, talking about anything serious. That's when who I am and where I'm going to go became so much less important to who I am right now in the moment and who I'm doing it for. I'd rather, my new channel has 78 subscribers, and if all 78 of those people watch my show on Monday and they feel motivated to go out and maybe face some of their fears, because we will get into fear, and face some of their fears, and go for an objective, and nobody else watches it, nobody else subscribes, I don't care, because if I get a thank you, I don't even need a thank you. I just hope it helps somebody. You know what I mean? I've realized the power of my platform. And even though my new channel might not have a lot of subscribers, we know what I can do. I gave it to it's public knowledge now. I talked about it on my show too. The
Yeah.
Crier Media YouTube channel that is like, I think 18,000 subscribers. That was mine. We had 20 when you gave it over. I know I can build a following, and I'm not saying this arrogantly. Like, I know I can build a following. It's not a concern of mine, but because I know what I have, and I know what I have on Newsbreak, and I know what I have on Twitter and all these other places, I also understand that I have a platform. And I believe when we have a platform like you do with this channel, or with this show, and the people you bring on, and being number one in Norway, you know what I mean? Like,
For 1 week,
it doesn't matter. You were
2
number
years
one in
ago.
Norway. I'd never stop flexing that. That would be in my Twitter profile.
You know what's funny though? I actually, in a funny gag, Matt Kundle from the network who runs Sound Off, we did a bit of a once over on the old show, coming into this show, and he's looking through the stats, and the way Matt is, he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh wow, you're really big in India. Oh wow, you're really like." It was just this funny thing, and I was just in India a couple weeks ago, and I was like, maybe I should do like a India, I'm coming in, but I didn't. That was just a funny kind of gag. Wouldn't that be funny? You know what I mean? So
my biggest audience is India. It's unbelievable. I never knew there were
yeah.
such big football fans there. I love it.
It's a whole thing, man. It's just a third of the world's population is in 8
Yeah.
blocks, right? So it's just crazy. I was just there.
But yeah.
Yeah,
So,
man,
anyways, just to finish my point, and then I'll stop taking over your show.
no, it's great, buddy. That's what we're here for.
We have a platform, and I'm not saying that everybody needs to stand up and use their platform, but for me, it's like I'm gonna I still have Who's Got Next. It's still fun for me, and I'm gonna be just banging it out every Wednesday, and we're gonna talk about nonsense, but because I like to help people, because I like to give people advice, because I like to talk, all that kind of thing. I want to use my platform, especially Twitter. During COVID, I became very negative on Twitter. And then it never really went away. You know what I mean? And I'm not
Sure.
from a political standpoint, because as everybody
Yeah,
knows,
but you just get angry on there, man. There's such
Yes.
shittiness on there.
I put a tweet out the other day about snakes falling through someone's ceiling, which was the most horrifying thing I ever said. And I got called a liberal and told to move to China. And I was like, me? Like I'm the most apolitical person on the network. I don't vote. You know what I mean? Like,
I got into it with somebody that was ripping Blundell, and I was like, all right. And they were posting the old articles, and I'm like, can you post something new? Because that was a long time ago, and he's not that guy. And I'm like, what am I arguing with this guy for? And he's like, blah, 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 da, 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 da. And I'm like, you know what?
Did you
Don't care. Biggest podcast network in the nation. So back to your cottage, I guess. I don't know.
Did you see my exchange there a couple weeks ago? It went really big with Crier, but so the way I'm dealing with those kind of trolls now is, so him and Blundell are going back and forth, and then I jumped in and I asked him what his favorite Tom Hanks movie was. And then he got off and called me a lib this and a lib that, and I responded, and I was just asking him the dumbest questions back, like something like totally unrelated. And that's who I always was. I never used to get mad on Twitter, and I became kind of a prick on there, and I started swearing more. And I used to, oh my God, man, during lockdown, I tweeted at Doug Ford and Christine Elliott 40 times a day. Like, I almost want to meet them and apologize to them in person. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, the things I said, I shouldn't have said. They were just so rude. I don't care who you are. I'm not going to call you fat. And I was calling people fat. Like, I was just doing things that I don't do in life.
Sure.
So I'm really trying to bring my Twitter account too, and you probably see it by some of my stuff. I'm trying to bring it to a more positive place. I'm trying to put more positive stuff out. And just back to who Ray is, because Ray's just like, and I'm talking to myself in third person, but I'm just a happy guy who likes to help people, and then every once in a while I like to talk sports,
Well, it's I can tell you, number one, I've been trying to talk to you for a long time, and watching this show, your appearances on the show, and just your contributions to the network leading in. I got to talk to Ray. And, part of this new launch for me was being able to talk to people like yourself. So this has been great, because I like the story of people, and I like talking to different kinds of people. In fact, I haven't had one person from my industry on the show yet, which is ironic considering, it was pretty loaded before. But these stories are just as interesting to me. Motivationally, I'm a huge proponent of the happiness equation. I'm a very huge, the book of like things like that. The happiest people in the world. How do the happiest people in the world live? I think it's an amazing space to be in. I too, I'm 4 years sober myself, and so I find that there is a community there, but if it's done wrong, it's like it's no different than yelling political shit or this or that. If it's done right, you have an opportunity to change lives. So, Ray, number one, thank you for the time today. I really appreciate it. There is a ton of layers to you that I can tell that we haven't even really dove into fully yet. But you got the pod. You've got a brand new pod called Ray's Got Next as well. You've got the magazine, everything else you're doing. Plus, you're building and helping Crier build a brand. You're building a brand new brand. You're doing a ton of things. So you are the perfect candidate for this week's edition of Do Did Will. You also release on Wednesdays, so we are Wednesday buddies on the network on Crier Media, which is awesome. Before I let you go, where can people find you online and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, I previously spent half my day on Twitter, so follow me there at DPN_Ray. Come give me a follow. I'll follow you back. If I don't, remind me to. It takes me a while, but I will. I'll follow you back. Let's have a nice, positive, fun exchange. Talk smack to me as long as I know we're fooling around. It's all good. Find me on my YouTube page, just Ray Rauth, RAYRAUTH. Again, I got like one video up there right now, but it's going to be filled up with stuff. I did some recording today. Follow me on Instagram at DPN_Ray Rauth because someone stole DPN_Ray, really irritated me. And I'm on TikTok, which is DPN_Ray, which again is kind of cleansed, but it will be getting built back up. I'm resetting the algorithm, so
Yes.
it's you'll be able to find me on those are the three you can find me on. Of course, on Crier Media. I try to post at least 3 or 4 times a week, and then again, I have my podcast, Who's Got Next. You can find Ray's Got Next on the same channel, and we release every Wednesday, and Ray's Got Next every Monday. So
I can't wait for Ray's Got Next. I can't wait for Ray's Got Next. I'm a sports guy too, but I also, we're inundated with so many different pods, and everyone's got sports opinions and this and that. So I do like some out of the box pods, and it sounds like Ray's Got Next is going to be an amazing addition to the network and to your life, which I think you're going to find very fulfilling. I love scrolling TikTok and finding you up there just out of the blue. I'm like, this is great. And it just goes to prove that the algorithm is working on positivity, and I can't thank you enough for being that guy and also making the time for this little show. So thank you very much, my friend.
I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for having me.
That's Ray Rauth. That is Do Did Will, the Story People podcast for another week on the Crier Media Network. Everybody, make sure you check out Ray everywhere and all the places, and we'll see you next week.